In today's video, we got to talk about the brand new Steam Deck beta that just dropped. This is a new one after 3.8's preview update, and I'll give you some thoughts on the preview update after using it for an entire weekend. And after that, I know things are crazy in the PC world, but they're even crazier on the console side of the fence, and it looks like Sony is actually scared of Valve more than Nintendo or Xbox. And finally, this is surprising, but they put out the spec sheet for Forza Horizon 6, and they list playing on Steam Deck as a key PC feature. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you're having a great week playing a ton of video games. We're back in the basement. It finally warmed up here in Michigan, so I can stand a bee down here. I gotta clean up the rest of the set. Like, this area is fine, but the rest of the basement, I've just been storing stuff down here all winter, so that's my project for tonight. But yeah, I'll still find some time for Crimson Desert, Screamer, and a bunch of other games I'm trying out on Steam Deck and my SteamOS PC. Let me know what you're playing down in the comments below, but let's get into the first news story here. So we'll start with the beta update that just came out right after they released that awesome new preview update. The first and most major feature that they've added is a quick chat system. So if you've never chatted with someone on Steam, which, like, I guess a lot of people probably don't use the chat feature on Steam because Discord is so ubiquitous, but I use it because I talk to you guys all the time. It's kind of buried in SteamOS. You've got to go through multiple menus to actually find it and then get to the chat you're looking for or initiate a new chat. Now they've added in a quick chat system where in the quick access menu, so the three dots button menu, it's right there. You can answer messages really quickly and easily and get back into the game a lot quicker. I like that. I don't like having to go into separate windows to answer chats because it pauses the game. It breaks your immersion. It kind of just takes you out of the experience you're having on either your Steam Deck or your SteamOS PC or your Legion Go S or Legion Go 2 or ROG Ally or ROG Ally X, whatever device you're running SteamOS on. So I like that they're rethinking that because any of these little quality of life things that they do before the Steam machine comes out are going to go a really long way because we won't have anything to complain about other than, you know, how long it took to actually release, because I really want the Steam machine. The next feature that they added, which I think is going to come in handy for a lot of people, especially once the Steam machine is here, is they've changed the login screen once again. So you can switch to desktop mode directly from the login screen. So you don't got to log into your Steam Deck in game mode, go to power, go all the way down to sleep, then switch to desktop. Now, once you turn the thing on from a shutdown or sleep mode state, if you've got the login screen enabled, you can just immediately switch to desktop and log in from there. Saves you some time, gets things a little more elegant and easy to use. I love updates like that as well. And finally, they fixed a bug with chat where, you know, if you scroll up too far, it'll stop loading in old messages. Now it should just keep infinitely loading in your old messages as you scroll up. I thought it just deleted messages because I've had chats with people since I added everyone on Steam. And, you know, I remember talking to some people and then wanting to scroll back to see what they said to me initially, and then those messages were gone. Turns out it was a bug with SteamOS. So with this new beta, everything should be copacetic. And then moving the conversation over to the preview update, I did something a little bit crazy. I had a trip out of town to New York this weekend, and I decided to install the preview update on Thursday night before I flew out. And then I made sure I launched all the games I wanted to play. So like Monster Hunter Stories, Resident Evil 4 HD Project, and Monster Hunter Rise. And then I said, okay, I hope this preview update works, and it worked flawlessly. I was able to play on the plane in offline mode. I noticed the new graphics driver really smoothed out frame times. Like a lot of games like Resident Evil 4 that would have some quick loading stutters, those are completely gone. Everything is just a little bit snappier, and moving into desktop mode, everything's a lot snappier there as well. I didn't actually try playing any games in desktop mode because on the Steam Deck, you don't really have to launch games from desktop mode, but I'm assuming that Wayland update is doing its job, and I noticed the standby time is just a little bit better. And this might be placebo, but I think the standby time also got a little bit better on the Steam Deck OLED because I know they only advertised it for the Steam Deck LCD, but I left Resident Evil 4 HD Project in sleep mode, and then when I came back to play it again 3 days later, I still had about 80% battery because, you know, it's an old game. It's from like 2005, and even with the HD texture pack, you get like 4 or 5 hours of battery life out of the Steam Deck, even running it at full resolution at 60 FPS. So it very lightly sips battery when you're actually playing it. So I only ended up using like 10%, and it was still close to where I left it 2 full days later when I didn't even touch the Steam Deck. It was just sitting there in sleep mode. So yeah, it's a great update so far. I gotta be honest though, I'm always a little bit weary about trying out beta updates since I had a bad experience 2 summers ago. I was having this stuttering issue with the original Alan Wake, not the remastered edition that they put out that you can install through the Epic Store. I was having major stuttering issues, and then right at the end of my trip back here to Michigan, because I was still living in California at the time, I ended up just downgrading back to the stable release, and that fixed the issue. I don't have to do that anymore. I've had the beta for a few months now, and even after bumping up to preview mode, everything is working fine. So if you want these nice new updates for your Steam Deck, I'm giving it a pass. I might run into issues tomorrow, and then I'll have to update everyone. But after spending hours of time playing games on the preview update on a trip, everything was working great. So huge shout out to Valve for that. And if you want to stay up to date on all the Steam Deck updates, please subscribe to the channel and set your notifications to all. It really helps me out. But that brings me to the second news story, which kind of slipped by me. This all happened with the closure of Blue Point Games. This one is a little contentious because obviously you don't want to see Sony closing down a bunch of studios, but like depending on who you talk to, Blue Point was either like this amazing remake studio or they butchered every game they touched, whether it was Shadow of the Colossus or the Demon's Souls remake. I thought the Demon's Souls remake was fine. I played Demon's Souls back on the PS3. I mean, I think people are trying to be cool kids where they're like, yeah, I discovered the Souls series through Demon's Souls. It had this immaculate art direction, blah, blah, blah. You know people that I'm talking about, because I thought it looked good. I thought it had a cool art style, but nothing was like monumental about it to me back in the day. The one that really hooked me was Dark Souls. But regardless, Blue Point shut down, and so, you know, the studio head was doing some interviews, and he ended up tweeting out that if Valve releases a new Steam console that provides a console-like experience while still giving players access to their entire PC game library, that could become a very compelling option. And that was in response to a question about Sony being scared of the Switch 2 or Project Helix. And he was like, no, actually, I think they're a little bit nervous about what Valve is doing. And I understand that, but I think they're being a little proactive, because I think best case scenario, like the Steam machine sells double-digit millions of units. Like if it gets to 10, that would be immaculate, because, you know, the Steam Deck is successful. It has a really dedicated community, but I think the community punches above its weight because we only sold like 5 million of these things to us. So like, it's not, you know, going head to head with the PS5 or the Nintendo Switch 2 or anything. Those are in the like teens and hundreds of millions of units, or if they're not yet, they will be eventually. So taking into account the fact that you can only buy the Steam machine from Valve, whereas you can get the PS5 from Sony, you can get it from Amazon, Best Buy, Target, you can get it in a lot of places. And also because of the RAM shortage, there probably won't be a ton of Steam machines to go around for launch or the foreseeable future. I mean, setting the sights so high that they would really make a dent in what Sony's trying to do seems a little premature if you ask me. But on the other hand, I think it is smart to be conscious of what Valve is doing, because, you know, once they get this operating system out there on a PC style box officially, that opens the door for other PC manufacturers like Asus, like Lenovo, like Dell, any of the third-party OEMs to start switching over to SteamOS for at least some dual models like they did with the Legion Go S, because I think it's compelling, right? Like you've got Steam access directly built into the operating system. There's no licensing fee for SteamOS. Valve handles a lot of the updates. They definitely do for the Legion Go S, and they even go through the extra work to add support for the Xbox ROG Ally and everything. So I feel like that's a compelling offering for a lot of these OEMs. And just from a sheer numbers perspective, you can fudge the numbers a little bit and count Windows users as Xbox users, but I'm sure if you did the actual math of people who are subscribed to Game Pass or go out of their way to buy games through the Xbox app, it would pale in comparison to the total number of people spending money on Steam. So like that helps in Steam's favor as well. So yeah, I don't think Sony's necessarily scared, but I think it's smart for them to be proactive, because while everyone else is kind of going towards opening up their ecosystem to more hardware, Nintendo and Sony are kind of closing theirs back off, and it's going to be really interesting to see which one shakes out as the winner in a few years. Or, you know, they could not try to race to the bottom and just exist alongside each other and not necessarily help each other out, but introduce innovative features on one platform that the other platforms can learn from. You know, like there's tons of possibilities here, but like worst case scenario, I think would be any of these going away. I think they all bring value to the overall gaming ecosystem, so I don't want any of them to go away. And Xbox owns a lot of my favorite game companies, so like just from that perspective, I want Xbox and Microsoft to be successful. So yeah, the next generation is going to be interesting, because on the PlayStation side, you've got people not too thrilled about the potential of upgrading to the PlayStation 6. On Nintendo's side, it's interesting because depending on who you talk to, the Switch 2 is either monumentally successful or, you know, kind of not doing as well as Nintendo wanted because they just scaled down the amount that they're producing over the next few months. And then on Xbox's side, on the one hand, they've got some really cool, exciting stuff coming in the future. On the other hand, they've got to execute correctly, and it kind of feels like their last chance. So I don't know. I think the next few years are going to be interesting. But speaking of Xbox, I got to thank them for this pleasant surprise because the spec sheet for Forza Horizon 6 came out, and not only are the specs pretty conservative for this game, they also list playing on Steam Deck as a key PC feature. Well, in reality, they say playing on Steam Deck and Xbox ROG Ally X, but yeah, the minimum spec is for low settings, 1080p 60, so that seems pretty good. And what it's targeting for parts is right around where the Steam Deck is at. 16 gigabytes of RAM being required seems to be the bottleneck for the Steam Deck lately, but we'll see how it goes. And the reason I think this game might actually be okay on the Steam Deck is the fact that, you know, for the extreme RT setting, which is the highest, it says all you need is a 9070 XT or 5070 Ti. So if you have a better card, like a 5080 or a 5090, you're going to have a lot of overhead to work with. I think this game might be CPU limited though. That's going to be the major issue for everyone, because if you look at Forza Motorsport, that game looked really good and performed really good unless you had a lot of cars bunched up around you. Like the beginning of races, you would see frame drops even on beefy PCs because having so many cars around you with ray tracing going on and crazy lighting, it would just hammer the crap out of your CPU and you'd see the frame rate just fluctuate down to like 40 or 50 FPS. And then once the race was actually started and the pack kind of spread out, you would see it stabilize at around 60 FPS. So even though, you know, the spec sheet requires a limited computer to actually get to their minimum settings and a decent computer to get to the middle settings, I think the CPU is just going to be a problem for this game if they're using a lot of the stuff that Turn 10 came up with for Forza Motorsport. But I think for the last few games, Playground Games has been the de facto leader in terms of Forza development. So I'll take them at their word for it because I really want to play this game on the Steam Deck. Forza Horizon 5 is one of my most played games on the Steam Deck, and I can't wait to do it all again on Forza Horizon 6. And they did acknowledge my biggest criticism is being fixed. They're not cutting off Steam from save transferring with Xbox or the Windows PC app. So if you got a Helix, you can transfer your save between Steam no problem. I think that's great. I wish they had it for Forza Horizon 5 because I would have used my Series X a lot more if I didn't have to keep two different saves, right? But, you know, hindsight's 2020. What can you do except complain? But yeah, now that Resident Evil is behind me, I think this is my next most anticipated game. I just love open world racing games. I think the Forza Horizon series really just influences the entire industry because they do such a good job. And I'm glad that even though it took a long time to get this one out the door because they're splitting development time with Fable, I'm glad that it's shaping up to look like the wait was worth it. People have been asking for a Japan map forever, and unlike Assassin's Creed Shadows, it looks like they're just listening to the community for this one. Like the fact that there's a progression mode built in where you don't just get blasted with every supercar under the sun immediately and max out the credits within the first hour. I mean, that is reason alone for me to just buy this game day one. So once we get that included, everything else is just icing on the cake. So I'm really excited for this. 2026 so far is shaking out to be a great year for gaming. I mean, even on the racing side, we've got Screamer, which is totally under talked about right now. It is so awesome having a racing game where you control the steering with the left stick and the drifting with the right stick. It's like, it's the coolest and most unique thing I've seen from a racing game in so long, and I can't believe how well it runs on the Steam Deck. I'm excited to get more into Crimson Desert. Resident Evil 9 was amazing. I mean, there's so much to play right now. So as usual, let everyone know what you're playing down in the comments. But yeah, guys, that's all I've got for you in this one. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.